Live from the campus of Washington and Lee University with news for Rockbridge County, this is the Rockbridge Report.
Good evening and welcome to part 2 of the special election night edition of the Rockbridge Report. I'm Donald LeCompte and I'll be joined later in the newscast by fellow news anchor Lily Mott. Hang in there with us, folks, as election results are starting to roll in. And let's start to take a look at some of the numbers we have here early on, and we will start with a look at the race that everyone is watching tonight, the presidential election. We have President Donald Trump up against Democratic challenger, former Vice President Joe Biden, and looking at the national picture here, this race is still far too close to call. A lot of votes still to be counted yet, but we can see thus far the incumbent, Donald Trump, has a slim margin of a lead, just over 50% of the vote, up against Joe Biden's 48% of the vote nationally. We're also tracking Libertarian challenger Jo Jorgensen, who is currently polling at about 1% compared to Gary Johnson, who garnered just over 3% of the national popular vote in 2016. Zooming in closer to home, the Associated Press has officially called Virginia's 13 electoral votes for former Vice President Joe Biden. We can see that early results here show a lead for Donald Trump, but it is expected that Joe Biden will overcome that deficit before the end of the night. While Virginia has already called for Biden, experts will be watching some of the more rural areas in Virginia to see how he's tracking compared to Hillary Clinton's performance in 2016. Looking at Buena Vista, where all the votes have been counted, we can see that President Donald Trump came in with almost 66% of the vote compared to Biden's 29%. Trump's total of 1,860 votes is up by over 400 votes from his 2016 campaign, potential sign of increased rural support for the president. But as we move to Lexington, where all precincts are also reporting, it's a different story. Joe Biden has won over 65% of Lexington voters, compared to Hillary Clinton's 61% of the vote in 2016. And we can see that Donald Trump came in with 33% of the vote, compared to 31% in 2016. And finally, in Rockbridge County, an overwhelming majority of support being shown for the president, Donald Trump, came in with over 81% of the vote, compared to just 17% for Joe Biden. It's a big leap for the president compared to 2016, when he won just 62% of the vote in Rockbridge County. Shifting gears now, let's look at the U.S. Senate race here in Virginia, with Democratic incumbent Mark Warner up against the Republican challenger Daniel Gade. And again, it's still plenty of votes to be called, still too early to call it for sure, but looks like Daniel Gade has an early lead here, 57% of the vote up against Mark Warner's 43%. Again, though, lots of votes still to be counted. This one could easily shift gears before the end of the night, so we'll keep an eye out on this race. Let's zoom in now once again to see how this race shaped up locally, starting with Buena Vista. You can see the Republican Daniel Gade has won 63% of the vote compared to incumbent Mark Warner's 37%. Reminder that all of our local precincts have already reported all of their final results. And shifting now to Lexington, again, it's a different story. Democrat Mark Warner has won 67% of the vote here, up against Daniel Gade's almost 33%. And in Rockbridge County, again, a large showing of support for the Republican candidate, as Daniel Gade has almost 77% of the vote compared to 23% for Mark Warner. And the last race we will take a look at right now, the 6th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives, where we have incumbent Republican Ben Cline up against a Democratic challenger, Nicholas Betts. And with a large majority of precincts reporting thus far in the district, it looks like Ben Cline is on his way to re-election with 75% of the vote. Up against Nicholas Betts is just 25% of the vote. We'll have to see how this shakes out, but it is looking good thus far for the incumbent Republican. In Buena Vista, we can see a large showing of support again for the incumbent, Ben Cline, with 75% of the vote in Buena Vista compared to just 25% for Nicholas Betts. Looking now at Lexington, again, it looks like the Democrat is going to win in Lexington. 60% of the vote for Nicholas Betts here in Lexington compared to just 40% for Ben Cline. And going out to Rockbridge County, you can see again it's looking like the Republican with a large majority of support in Rockbridge County, almost 84% of the vote for Ben Cline compared to just 16% for Nicholas Betts. Next up on the Rockbridge Report, Mary Alice Russell will talk with Rockbridge County Democratic Committee Chair Michelle Watkins. And later we will continue to cover results as they become available.
Welcome back to Election Night with the Rockbridge Report. I'm Lily Mott. Earlier, reporter Jin Nee spoke with voter Doug Smith at the Republican Election Night celebration. Now we go to reporter Mary Alice Russell outside of the Democratic headquarters with Michelle Watkins. Mary Alice?
Good evening. We are live from the Democratic headquarters for Lexington and Rockbridge. I'm here with Michelle Watkins, who will tell us a little bit about what it is like. So Michelle, are you excited for what's been going on tonight?
You know, we really are. We have had just so much energy in our community, definitely within our party. Even watching the early voting coming in and the absentee mail-in ballots that were coming in, we had about 5,000 even before today that have been counted, at least as a total, not per candidate, of course. But and then going into the precincts today, everybody was respectful with one another. There really wasn't any tension or anything like that. Also, the numbers are off the charts for the number of voters that have been at each of the precincts. And it was really nice to just be around people and see the positive energy on that.
Great. And then why do you think that Joe Biden is the best candidate?
Vice President Biden is very science-based. When we have a pandemic that's impacting the entire world, not just our own country, he's looking to the scientists to treat the diagnosis, to find hopefully a cure for that. He's not just looking over the medicine cabinet per se. So he would definitely rely on science for that determination. Also, Vice President Biden is really focused on bringing communities together, not tearing them apart, not dividing them. And that's critical for a country if we want to move forward. And he's also focused on the workers, on the individual workers, not the large corporations and profit. So he definitely is an advocate for the people.
And then I know that usually you have like a big event here, but everything had to be over Zoom. How has COVID impacted your usual party for election night?
You know, and we've had large events in the past. We've had a lot of people in a small room in the past, and while that's fun, one of the things that we are really excited about under the current circumstances is by going through Zoom or any type of online system, we are able to reach beyond just our local community members, but we can reach people across the state, across the country, and even in other countries. So we are bringing so many more people into our celebration than what we would be able to do at headquarters.
Yes. Okay, great. Back to you all in the studio.
Constitutional Amendment 1 would establish a bipartisan redistricting commission to set district lines, if passed, in Virginia. So taking a look at the results from the state of Virginia so far, we are looking at about 1.1 million yes votes. So the yes votes are up right now, but there are still a few precincts to be recorded, so we will wait for the rest of the night to see how those come in. Now we're going to be taking a look at the Buena Vista city results for that same Constitutional Amendment number 1. Right now, we are looking at 75% for the yes votes, and 3 of 3 precincts are reporting. So Buena Vista voted yes for that Constitutional Amendment number 1. Now moving on to take a look at Lexington, where the amendment also passed, and about 77% of voters favored to pass that Constitutional Amendment number 1. So now if we move on to take a look at Rockbridge County, we are looking at 73% of yes votes for that one, and 17 out of the 18 precincts are reporting, so we're looking like that's going to be a yes as well in Rockbridge County. Taking a look at Constitutional Amendment number 2, which is the next amendment, and this one would provide motor vehicle tax exemptions for veterans with disabilities. We are looking at an overwhelming yes vote with 86% of the population. And again, there are some precincts that haven't been reported yet, but we're looking like that one is going to pass as we move farther into the night. Taking a look at Buena Vista right now, 89% of voters said yes for the Constitutional Amendment number 2 to pass, and precincts are completely reported, so it passes in Buena Vista. Moving on to look at Lexington. The amendment also passed, 82% of the votes there, and it passed in Lexington with all of the precincts recorded. Now, if we look at Rockbridge County, the same Constitutional Amendment number 2, we are looking at 90% yes votes, so we still have a precinct to report, but we're pretty confident that has passed in Rockbridge County. We'll wait to see how those go throughout the night, but now taking a look at our first local race. The results of the Buena Vista School Board race are in, and Mac Feltz has won the spot with 100% of the precincts reported, and he won by a narrow margin, so Mac Feltz will take that seat on the Buena Vista City School Board. Moving on to our next race, we are going to be looking at the next contested race is the Goshen Town Council, and we still aren't 100% sure on this one. 1 precinct of 2 have been reported, but we're looking like it's pretty close right now, and we'll see how that one goes for the rest of the night. Bickley Stephen, Burke Robert, and Deborah Bowden, they are all in the running, and we'll wait to see how that develops later in the night. We don't have anything, it's too close to call at this point. We are going to go back to Mary Alice Russell at the Democratic headquarters with our political expert, and then later we'll have more election results. Welcome back to Election Night with the Rockbridge Report. I'm Lily Mott. Now we head back to the Democratic headquarters with reporter Mary Alice Russell, who is live with political expert Avalon Purnell. Mary Alice?
And we're back with Avalon Purnell, who is our Democratic expert. So Avalon, do you think that Virginia will continue the blue wave?
Absolutely, although I'm not quite sure if we're going to call it a full blue wave, considering that District 2 and District 7 are still kind of up for grabs. Last time we had the incumbents come in, and they did actually get Democrats past Trump country, but with the race looking right now, it does look like they could actually lose their seats right now. That said, the senator has already regained his spot. It is not really up for grabs at this point, so it's going to stay blue. And it looks like they are going to remain blue for the presidential election, so Biden already kind of has those electoral votes.
And what states are you hoping will go blue tonight?
It'll be very important to see either Florida flip to blue, although it definitely looks a little bit unlikely at this point. But if Biden can get Ohio, if he can get Wisconsin, Michigan, or if he can get Arizona, all of those together would be really great. It's also looking like Texas and Georgia will still be in play though. So if he can get any of those states as well, that would just be the icing on the cake.
Right, and what state elections are you hoping, you've already talked about it a little bit, but which ones are you looking at specifically tonight?
I'm actually going to be looking at the North Carolina race. That is going to be very important just to see whether it is going to be sustainably red or whether it's going to actually turn blue, whether we can actually get those Senate seats. Considering that it just needs a net 3 gain. That said, Alabama is probably not going to remain blue. Doug Jones is probably going to lose his seat. So it'll be interesting to see if the Democrats can actually win both the House and also the Senate.
Yes, and then in Virginia, we are talking about 2 acts. Can you talk a little bit about the one that would have a bipartisan group that would draw the lines?
Absolutely, that would be a game changer because it would actually help against gerrymandering, which has been a large issue not only in Virginia but across the U.S. So that would be a major step in the right direction for Virginia to decide to allow a nonpartisan group to draw the lines and take it out of partisan hands. That said, it could actually prove a double-edged sword for the current party that is in power, which would be the Democrats. So we'll definitely see what happens.
Yes, we definitely will see what happens. Thank you so much for talking with us tonight, Avalon. It was great to hear from you and everything. So back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Mary Alice. Now let's take a look at the rest of the races. Let's look at the rest of the results for the races in the area. So now we're going to be looking at the Lexington mayor race, and incumbent Frank Friedman will return as Lexington city mayor. Moving on to the Lexington City Council race, where there were originally 5 candidates in the race, but 2 dropped out, leaving the race uncontested. Leslie Strawn, Marilyn Alexander, and Charles Alligood won spots on the Lexington City Council. Looking now at the unexpired seat on the Goshen Town Council, Sandra Schaefer will fill that spot after her uncontested race. Moving on to the Glasgow City Council race now, it was an uncontested race, and Sonny Williams, Aaron Britton, and Andrew Ryan will fill their seats on the Glasgow City Council. There was one unexpired position on the town council as well, which was filled by Tom Camden after an uncontested race. For Shauna Muckle, Donald LeCompte, and the rest of the team, I'm Lily Mott. Thank you for tuning in to Election Night with the Rockbridge Report. Good night.